This is Nahsa Kasha, Ukrainian Almanac, 28 minutes of stories for everyone about Ukrainian life. We're based on the campus of Western University in London, Ontario, Canada. You can hear us on many social media platforms, and we are broadcast on 19 campus and community radio stations from Newfoundland to British Columbia. I'm your reporter, Stefan Andrusiak. The COVID-related worldwide pandemic has restricted my ability to conduct in-person interviews as I respect social distancing practices. And I've been replaying some stories from the beginnings of Nahsa Kasha. That was a time when the program was heard on only 3 or 4 radio stations. Most of you have not heard this episode, which first aired in October of 2016. Now, to keep the show current, I have also reached out to those who were profiled in the original episode. I do hope you enjoy the stories. So, here we go. Today we head to the city of St. Thomas, which lies 31 kilometers to the south of London, a 30-minute car trip. But first, we'll stop at the Salt Creek Farm Market for a basket of peaches, some artisan cheese, and a dozen pirogues. The grocery store is on rural Route 8 on the edge of St. Thomas. The man we are about to interview found his most recent calling here.
Thank you. You're welcome. Have a great day.
As the market's general manager. Steve Peters, a long-time serving city councillor, then the mayor, a member of the Provincial Legislative Assembly, then a cabinet minister, and finally the speaker of that chamber. Make no mistake, he comes to the grocery business well credentialed, having worked in a grocery store when he was a boy.
Hi, my name is Petra Van Bommel, and I'm the assistant manager at Salt Creek Farm Market.
Do you know Steve Peters very well?
Yes, I do, actually. My mom worked for him for a number of years as his, executive assistant when he was the MPP, when he was agricultural minister as well, because my dad's a farmer, so she has a big agricultural background. So I've known him since I was 4. His formal position would be the manager of Salt Creek. We're actually run by CMHA, which is the Canadian Mental Health Association. So we have clients that work in the store, which helps them with all sorts of life skills and whatnot. We have them working in the kitchen.
Дорогі слухачі, пропонуємо вам послухати історію і репортаж про політика Стіва Пітерса. Він народився у місті St. Thomas. Now, some say the city inherited its name from an old church, but many contend that the city of St. Thomas wasn't actually named for a saint. It was named after Thomas Talbot, a popular 19th century politician. St. Thomas is located at the intersection of 2 strategic roads, exactly one half of the way between Detroit, Michigan, and Buffalo, New York. An important railway junction. A total of 26 railways have passed through this city at some time, with up to 100 trains a day. In September of 1885, one of those trains struck and killed the world's most loved, most famous circus elephant, Jumbo. The city erected a life-sized commemorative statue, and Steve Peters has spent a lifetime collecting Jumbo the elephant memorabilia and art. He says it helps him relax. Here's the St. Thomas band Jumbo Train. Dennis Kalichuk wrote and performs this song. When I asked him who sings the female harmony, he replied, "It's a guy, his bandmate, Dean Greer." Wide vocal range, he added. In a town where Thomas Talbot became St. Thomas, it is possible. And It's Possible is the name of this song.
Didn't think it was possible to love anyone as much as I love you. You're the rain in a storm cloud, the smoke in a cigarette, the sunshine on an island beach, and I bet that you could get anyone or anything with just your smile or a telephone ring. bright shine. Cruise down your Park Avenue, share a jug of deep red wine. Look into those sparkling blues, feel blessed that you are mine. Didn't think it was possible. And I wanna get old with you, bask in your bright shine, cruise down your Park Avenue, share a jug of deep red wine. Look into those sparkling blues, feel blessed that you are mine. I didn't think it was possible to love anyone as much as I love you. You're the blood of every heartbeat, a whisper in the wind, the splashing of a babbling brook, the reason I have sinned. Every time with every kiss, this time with you, I would not miss. And I wanna get old with you, bask in your bright shine, cruise down your Park Avenue, share a jug of deep red wine. Look into those baby blues, feel blessed that you are mine. Now I know it's possible to love someone as much as I love you.
That was Dennis Kalichuk, Jumbo Train. He looks and sounds a bit like John Bon Jovi.
What I was saying, so this was a book that was prepared in the mid '80s on Ukrainian families in Saskatchewan. Everyone was asked to kind of provide their short little family history. So this is them. So that's my dad's family there.
And their names?
These were the Pete Verbetskis. St. Thomas was settled in 1810, and out of those first early settlers, the community grew at the crossroads. The first church opened here in 1822, and very much it was the old St. Thomas Church, and very much lent its name to the community. It was an agrarian community, for the most part, a trading center for the local farmers. Starting though in the 1850s, the first railway passed through, and then in the 1870s, two more railways passed through, and it very much transformed the city from the agrarian supply-based community to an industrial center. The St. Thomas grew very rapidly, very dependent on the railways in its early years, and as the railway declined in importance, the auto industry took over. So it's been very much a transportation-based community from its earliest days.
Where does Pete Verbitsky, where do the Pete Verbitskis come from?
I'm actually full-blooded Ukrainian on all four sides, all from the Western Ukraine. My father's mother's family arrived in 1903, settling in Saskatchewan. My father's family came in 1910, settling in Saskatchewan as well, too. My grandparents met in Saskatchewan. On my mother's side, both mother and her mother and father came in 1928, settling in Winnipeg. They didn't know each other in the Ukraine, but they met while they were here in Canada.
That was the first wave of settlement. 1891, the first Ukrainians came.
It's building on that good work of Clifford Sefton. My family, and as did countless other families, took advantage of the the quarter section, or 160 acres of land, and on my father's side, both his mother and father came from families of 10 children, and there's no one in the agricultural business today, but they were certainly, that was an important part of their lives. On my mother's side, when my grandfather arrived, he went to work on a farm. He pulled stumps to pay the debt that had allowed him to come to Canada, and then he later worked as a sectionman on the railway. And my grandmother, she was sponsored by an auntie. My grandmother's story is kind of interesting because she was when she left in 1928, she was only 16 years old and too young to leave. And the parish priest changed her birth certificate to make her 18 years of age and allowed her to leave. And I always remember the story that Baba told, that when she got on the train, her last words from her mother, "Don't ever look back." And Baba never returned to the Ukraine.
Nahsa Kasha comes to you from CHRW 94.9 FM on the campus of Western University in London, Ontario. We're heard on CHMR 93.5 FM in St. John's, Newfoundland, on CKDU 88.1 FM in Halifax, on Local 107.3 FM in St. John, New Brunswick, on CJAS Radio 93.5 FM in Saint Augustine, Quebec, on CJLO 1690 AM in Montreal, on CFRC 101.9 FM in Kingston, on CFMU 93.3 FM in Hamilton, on CKMS 102.7 FM in Kitchener-Waterloo, on CJAM 99.1 FM in Windsor and Detroit, on CKLU 96.7 FM in Sudbury, on CILU 102.7 FM in Thunder Bay, on 101.5 UMFM in Winnipeg, on CJRT 91.3 FM in Regina, on CFMQ 98.1 FM in Hudson Bay, Saskatchewan, on CFBX 92.5 FM in Kamloops, on CIVL 101.7 FM in Abbotsford, on CJSF 90.1 FM in Vancouver, and on CHLY 101.7 FM in Nanaimo, British Columbia.
Тільки батьківщина.
When I think of the name Підвірбицький, the root means under the willow tree. And I driving here, I was thinking about flexibility. They had to change, or felt they had to change their names.
My grandfather was a farmer. He was farmed in Saskatchewan, and in 1937, kind of a combination of the Depression and the Dust Bowl, he lost his farm. And he left my father and my auntie and my grandmother in Saskatchewan and traveled to Toronto. And he told the story of going to apply for a job at Massey Harris, later Massey Ferguson, and was applied as Dmytro Підвірбицький and was told that they weren't hiring communists. And somebody suggested to him that he change his name, and he pulled the name Dick Peters out of the air. So Peters is my name, but Підвірбицький is my true last name. It was very common in Toronto. I remember speaking at my grandparents' 50th anniversary, and the number of anglicized Ukrainian names that were in attendance that day was quite common in order to get ahead in a community like Toronto at the time. My mother and father both grew up in Toronto, very active in the Ukrainian church and the Ukrainian youth groups in Toronto, and that's where they met. And they moved to St. Thomas, as I say, in 1959, and settled down here. Growing up in St. Thomas there was a very small Ukrainian community. My parents were involved in it on the periphery. We had a small Ukrainian church that had been established in the 1950s. You knew virtually everybody in the city, and we went through public school and high school together and attended the University of Western Ontario. And then I came back to St. Thomas. From my youngest age, I always had a job. Very conscious as well, though, of community service and the importance of giving back to your community. And I certainly witnessed that with all four of my grandparents and my parents, that they were hard workers. They instilled that as well in my brother and sister. We've all been taught to work hard. And for me, that led to my interest in politics. I was elected to St. Thomas City Council at the age of 25 in 1988. I served one term on council. And in 1991, I was elected mayor at the age of 28 and served as mayor for 7.5 years. And then an opportunity arose to move on into provincial politics. And in 1999, I was elected to the provincial legislature as the member of provincial parliament for Elgin, Middlesex, London. I spent 4 years in opposition, and then when we took government in 2003, I was appointed as the Minister of Agriculture and Food. Spent 2 years in that ministry. I was 2 years as the Minister of Labour. After the 2007 election, I was dropped from the cabinet, and I saw an opportunity for a new aspect of politics, and I chose to run as the Speaker of the Legislative Assembly, and I was elected by my peers as the Speaker, and I served as the Speaker from 2007 to 2011.
You were the youngest elected mayor, well, the youngest mayor in all of Canada when you were elected.
I was. There's been younger mayors elected, and one of my mottos was both give youth a chance and choose the future, and that, there were some that said, you're too young, you don't have the experience, and I've always been someone that believes that, you're not in this as an individual. You need to work collectively and work with others.
Did you feel in over your head at any point?
Not so much in over my head, but at times the frustration of, during the early 1990s, St. Thomas underwent some real economic challenges. We saw approximately 7 manufacturing plants close, and the helplessness, really, that you had no control over those decisions that were being made in a corporate head office in the U.S. or in Europe. And as mayor, you saw the collective impact on the community, that yes, there were individual families that were affected, but as mayor, you saw the mounting job losses, the impact that had on local businesses. It was sad at times, but at the same time, like the phoenix rising from the ashes, we collectively worked as a council to find ways to attract new investment into the community, and those jobs that we lost, we were able to replace them.
During the Steve Peters interview, you heard a bit of the Cossack song Oi pід вербою. Виростеш сину, or Лебеді материнства, was performed by Zubryuka from Toronto, the singer Христя Морох. The violin-piano duet Harmony in the Family is from the Kubasonics' Giants of the Prairies album.
I think I can think of an issue affecting the Ukrainian community, and it was dealing with the Holodomor. And it was an issue that was a political hot potato in some ways, because within the certain communities that there was only one Holocaust and there were no other Holocausts, and it was the persistence of a number of individuals within the Ukrainian community, not just in Toronto but across the province, who convinced politicians of all stripes that this was a Holocaust, that this was a terrible tragedy that Stalin befell on the Ukrainian community in the 1930s. And it took a long time, but ultimately enough individuals were convinced that the Holodomor needed to be recognized by the Ontario legislature. And I guess if I had some advice, it is to be persistent, to be polite, but you need to make sure that you work with all the political parties to advance your agenda. And if you do that, that starts to develop a sense of importance and compromise amongst the politicians, that in order to advance that agenda, you need to constantly be advocating.
I think it was also a realization, both on the Ukrainian community's part and on other communities, that it's not a contest among tragedies, that one does not diminish the intensity of the sorrow for one particular terrible event in history by honoring another.
That's an excellent point. Again, that's where I relay the importance of making sure that, as you advocate for a particular thing, that you make it clear that there are others that have experienced serious tragedy. There have been countless incidents throughout our history that need to be recognized by politicians.
Do you speak any Ukrainian?
I don't. It's really it's a frustrating thing. My parents both spoke Ukrainian fluently. But it was never instilled in us, and I guess the best I can do is speak food. But no, I don't. If it's one of the regrets in my life that I didn't learn the language. I know particularly with my mother's father. He spoke English, but it was broken English, and as I delved into the family histories of all four sides of my family, I wish that I could have had the opportunity to speak Ukrainian, and also to read and write, because I know it would have benefited me in my researches.
Your brother, your sister?
None of us.
Okay. I know you've always said, well, when the time is right, but was there any sense that there are better things to do in life?
The toll of politics is very real. I watched countless marriages fail over the years as a result of politics. You are on duty 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. I gave up a lot of things personally for public service. We have allowed too much control to rest, as I like to say, in the corner office of unelected individuals influencing and guiding an agenda. Very much takes away from the role that the politicians play. There is not enough consensus building that takes place amongst our elected officials, and I was frustrated. But ultimately, in the end, the decision was truly a personal one. I had an amazing political career. I had the opportunity to do things that most people will never ever have the chance to do, and for me, I wanted to leave on my own terms, and that's what I did.
And that was the story in 2016. The Salt Creek Market Steve Peters managed at the time was sold in 2018. Now it's family-owned. It's called Howe's Farm Market and Country Bakery. And Steve Peters, well, he returned to municipal politics, running successfully for a seat on St. Thomas City Council, where he now serves. We also heard a song by the band Jumbo Train. Here's the latest from them.
Red wine, just like you, baby, it's getting oh so fine. Blue skies, not as nice as looking in your eye.
Dennis Kalachuk here, singer-songwriter, Jumbo Train. I chose a band type of name rather than recording and performing as Dennis Kalachuk. It makes it easier for me to acknowledge the huge contributions of the other wonderful musicians and friends that helped me out both on stage and in the studio. We have 4 original studio recorded albums to our credit. At this point, we played our last live concert in November of last year, 2019. Everything that I hoped all these years to be able to achieve in a live performance seemed to come together for all of us that particular concert, and I think we were all very excited and looking forward to going forward from there and performing a number of concerts and shows and festivals this year, 2020. But as you know, 2020 sure turned the world on its head, didn't it? But you know, most generations have gone through something huge like this in the way of a crisis, whether it be World War II, the Great Depression, World War I, the plagues and pandemics that came before that. I think it's part of being human. It's part of learning how to cope and survive and live on this planet for sure. So of course all those concerts and shows, they haven't happened. They're probably not going to happen. Personally, in no hurry to get back out there yet until things can be, the very best for us and the audience whenever that is. But in the meantime, you stay sharp. I've still been writing. Actually wrote, and we're in the middle of recording a new song right now with my drummer, sometimes bass player, Miles Pinot, so that's going to be coming out in a couple of weeks. Look for that. At the first of the lockdown, I did release a couple of self-recorded things at home, and just on a very happy note, and put them out there on social media just to hopefully bring a little bit of smile and a ray of sunshine into a viewer's day who might have been sort of isolating at home during that period. That's a step forward, and we certainly look forward to taking a big step forward. Best wishes to all of you out there. Let's get through this together. And hey, thanks for listening.
Every morning excited by the brand new day. Nothing I can handle, or so it seems. Counting blessings, giving thanks the only way.
Partial funding for Nasha Kasha is provided by the Shevchenko Foundation and by the Ukrainian Credit Union. Back in a week, God willing, до милої зустрічі за тиждень часу, дорогі слухачі.